Spooky ghosts and goblins are giving you a fright. All the heebie-jeebie boys are coming out at night. So gather round, big boys, we're going to the woods. Grab your best ghost hunting gear and we'll bring home the goods.
It's Growlers and Gremlins. It's Growlers and Gremlins. It's Growlers and Gremlins. It's Growlers and Gremlins.
Welcome to Growlers and Gremlins. I'm John, and with me this week I have Jason, the analyst, and
Brian.
All right, so this week our beer of the week is Peanut Butter Milk Stout from Left Hand Brewing Company. Same brewery as last week.
All right, I'm excited. I like the last one.
Let's try it. Oh, yeah. That's good. Peanut buttery. The side of the can says, rich milk chocolate notes team up with peanut buttery perfection for a deliciously dark duo. What do you think of it, Brian?
Oh, yeah. Tastes like Guinness. It's dark beer. It's good. I'll drink it.
What about you, Jason?
Oh, yeah, you can really taste the peanut butter.
Okay. Well, I am gonna have to edit this now. Because I forgot what I was gonna say. You know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna edit this episode. You'll be surprised to learn, despite my perfect impressions, I'm actually alone this week. Jason and Brian are not with me. Our recording schedule was a little bit messed up because we've been waiting on a guest from out of state. And so we have, well, the episode you're listening to today, we didn't have anything recorded for it, so I decided to do a solo episode. And I told Jason I would edit it, but I probably won't. I'll just leave everything in it. And also, today, the day this episode releases, is my birthday. So since it's my birthday, and Jason and Brian aren't here to stop me, we're going to go down a little rabbit hole. And instead of my usual 10 minutes of research, I put in a good 15 minutes this time. So what I want to talk about is what is becoming known as the Unified Conspiracy Theory, or Project Bluebeam. And by Unified Conspiracy Theory, they mean that it's basically the big one. It's the big conspiracy theory that wraps up all the others inside of it. And honestly, I'd never heard of it before until recently. People talking about the recent UFO stuff and some other things. People kept bringing up Project Bluebeam, and tried to look into it. Went to YouTube first and found one video from like 2008. It was all kind of overrun by another. Like, there's a software product called Bluebeam, but BLU Beam, and so it made it hard to find anything there. So then I went to Google, and of course, Google didn't give me anything useful. So then I got thinking, oh, this might actually be something, because usually if you can't find it on YouTube and you can't find it on Google, they're trying to hide it. So I went to DuckDuckGo, and I finally found some stuff, and Project Bluebeam, in summary, is a conspiracy theory that claims that NASA is attempting to implement a New Age religion with the Antichrist as its head and start a new world order via a technologically simulated second coming. There's a lot to that. The theory first came around in 1994 from a Canadian journalist by the name of Sergei Monast. Don't know if I'm saying it right. Might be Serge. There's no I at the end. But basically, he came up with this and started lecturing about it in 1994, and then wrote a book called Project Bluebeam NASA. And then in 1996, died of a heart attack, and the government kidnapped his children in an effort to dissuade him from investigating Project Bluebeam. I mean, that's the conspiracy theory, at least. He did die of a heart attack, and oddly enough, the government did take his children. He had been homeschooling his children, and after his death, they were made wards of the state. I don't really know why. I guess maybe he didn't have any extended family remaining. But Project Bluebeam basically works in 4 steps, and it has similarities to other theories in the past, one of which would be William Cooper's 1991 book titled Behold a Pale Horse. There's an excerpt from the book Behold a Pale Horse. There we go. That kind of dips into the area of Project Bluebeam a little bit. The excerpt is, "It is true that without the population or the bomb problem, the elect would use some other excuse to bring about the New World Order. They have plans to bring about things like earthquakes, war, the Messiah, an extraterrestrial landing, and economic collapse. They might bring about all of these things just to make damn sure that it does work. They will do whatever is necessary to succeed. The Illuminati has all the bases covered, and you are going to have to be on your toes to make it through the coming years." Another excerpt from the book says, "Can you imagine what will happen if Los Angeles is hit with a 9.0 earthquake? New York City is destroyed by a terrorist planted atomic bomb? World War III breaks out in the Middle East. The banks and the stock markets collapse. Extraterrestrials land on the White House lawn. Food disappears from the markets. Some people disappear. The Messiah presents himself to the world. And all in a very short period of time? Can you imagine? The world power structure can, and will if necessary, make some or all of those things happen to bring about the New World Order." It's an interesting recording setup. I'm holding the microphone in my hand in order to get a good sound quality. I'm using a different one from what we usually use, so my hand's getting pretty sweaty. But there's a lot here that I'm going to be going through, so I'm going to try not to talk too fast and just kind of bombard you with words and try to slowly work my way through this. So the theory starts, the Project Bluebeam theory starts with this quote: "Without a universal belief in the New Age religion, the success of the New World Order will be impossible." So basically, the Project Bluebeam is in 4 stages that are supposed to take place so that they can get everyone in the world to all believe in one religion, and that religion is essentially the government or the state, and get everyone to fall in line under a sort of communist New World Order. So in order to do that, they have to get everyone on board. So step 1 requires the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. The plan, apparently, is to create earthquakes all over the world over the period of years, and as a result of these earthquakes, there will be new archaeological discoveries that will make people question their religious beliefs. Essentially, they will try to discredit every major world religion with these findings. So, you're religious, and then they find something that is supposedly definitive proof that everything you've believed is wrong. Well, it's gonna make you think a little bit. So the idea is that they will create these fake new discoveries and publish them everywhere. And specifically, it's supposed to target Christian and Muslim doctrines. And, it makes sense if you're trying to get everyone to change their minds, well, change everything we know about our history and the world, and you're forced to question it. And there has been in the conspiracy theory world, there has been a history of archaeological findings either being faked or hidden from the public in order to create a certain historical narrative. But I'm going to go into more on that next week. And so, yeah, step 1, new archaeological discoveries that make us question everything. Step 2 is where it gets really interesting. Step 2 involves a gigantic space show wherein 3-dimensional holographic laser projections will be beamed all over the planet. And this is where Blue Beam really takes off. The projections will take the shape of whatever deity is most predominant and will speak in all languages. At the end of this light show, the gods will all merge into one god, the Antichrist. So, essentially, according to the people that follow Project Blue Beam, this first stage is going to be accomplished with technology that may or may not already exist. Basically putting a giant holographic image in the sky. It is also thought that some of the UFO sightings around the world, and especially in recent years, have been them testing the technology, seeing if they can get people to see things that they, believe are actual objects, but are actually just holograms. And I had actually seen a clip from a documentary not long ago where some guy, he was like something at some Air Force base. He was interviewed anonymously in the documentary, of course, so who knows. But he claimed that UFO sightings are projections, and they're put there to distract the public from actual aerial dogfights, basically, that are going on, or other operations going on in the sky. They use projections to distract the public so that they don't see what's really going on. But the most interesting thing about that is it seems to be entirely possible, and there was even a plan in 1991 to project the face of Allah in the sky in order to so they were going to project the face of Allah in the sky over Baghdad in order to convince the Iraqis to overthrow Saddam Hussein. But they never went about it, and supposedly the reason that they never did it was because they couldn't decide what they would make Allah look like. If you're going to convince people that this is their God speaking to them, well, you better have a good visual representation. And I wanted to see if there was any validity to that. And so I was looking around, and I actually found another article in Wired from 2008 called "The Face of Allah Weapon Returns." It says, researchers are looking at a concept for creating large holograms that could be projected onto a battlefield, according to the New Hampshire. This idea, which has been proposed in the past, typically theorizes that an image of God could be projected. The most recent mention of this idea is in the New Hampshire, a student newspaper, which explores non-lethal weapons in a fascinating 3-part series. The first article, which mentions the hologram weapon, is based on an interview with the head of the Non-Lethal Technology Innovations Center at the University of New Hampshire. This center, like another non-lethal lab at the University of Pennsylvania, has been supported by the Defense Department. In the concept stage, Glenn Schwery said, are more outlandish weapons, such as enormous holograms to incite fear in soldiers on a battlefield. So that is something that supposedly has been talked about off and on in the Defense Department and within the military, is the idea of this holographic weapon. But chances are the technology is there. They would have to use... There's a guy they talked to, military analyst Bill Aiken, said that according to a military physicist given the task of looking into the hologram idea, the feasibility has been established of projecting large 3-dimensional objects that appeared to float in the air. To project such a hologram over Baghdad on the order of several hundred feet, they calculated would take a mirror more than a square mile in space, as well as huge projectors and power sources. But, I mean, who knows? There are thousands of satellites up in space right now. Maybe there are some giant mirrors up there. I don't know. I didn't look into that. I gotta get some more beer. Oh, that's good. Since I'm alone this week, I have to drink all 4 beers. Okay, so I said this episode wouldn't have to be edited, but I was wrong. I said I needed to get another beer. I took a sip of my beer, and then I completely lost my train of thought, finished my beer, and now I'm back with another, and I remember what I was talking about. Let's get this opened up. Oh, I hope that sound picked up real good. Okay, so step 2 of the plan is, big light show in the sky. Every civilization in the world, they see their God in the sky, and it speaks to them. And during this, some people will hear specific messages to them, basically just put into their head that no one else can hear. Now, according to the theory, this will happen through a Soviet computer that will be fed the minute physiopsychological particulars based on their studies of the anatomy and electromechanical composition of the body and the studies of the electrical, chemical, and biological properties of the human brain. And every human has been allocated a unique radio wavelength. These computers are also capable of inducing suicidal thoughts. But essentially the idea is that they would use extremely low frequency sound or microwaves to be able to direct a message at a single person or a group of people that no one else can hear. And the people hearing it will hear it as if it's coming from within their own head. So they will believe that their God is speaking to them telepathically. And I looked into that, the technology behind that. And again, another article in Wired. They've really been here for me on this one. This article from 2007 was titled "The Voice of God Weapon Returns." So this is actually very interesting. The Voice of God Weapon, a device that projects voices into your head to make you think God is speaking to you, is the military's equivalent of an urban myth, meaning it's mentioned periodically at defense workshops, and typically someone whispers about it actually being used. And there's a quote from Steve Corman, writing at the ComOps Journal. He said, "At a government workshop some time ago, I heard someone describe a new tool that was described as the voice of Allah. This was said to be a device that would operate at a distance and would deliver a message that only a single person could hear. The story was that it was tested in a conflict situation in Iraq and pointed at one insurgent in a group, who whipped around looking in all directions and began a heated conversation with his compatriots who did not hear the message. At the time, I greeted this story with some skepticism." So apparently, Holosonic Research Labs and American Technology Corporation both have versions of directed sound which can allow a single person to hear a message that others around don't hear. And DARPA appears to be working on its own sonic projector. Strategy Page, whatever that is, reports that troops are using the long-range acoustic device as a modified voice of God weapon. In Strategy Page, it says, "It appears that some of the troops in Iraq are using spoken as opposed to screeching long-range acoustic devices. to mess with enemy fighters. Islamic terrorists tend to be superstitious and, of course, very religious. Long-range acoustic devices can put the word of God into their heads. If God, in the form of a voice that only you can hear, tells you to surrender or run away, what are you going to do? So, apparently, aside from extra low frequency sounds, it's apparently long been known that microwaves at certain frequencies can produce an auditory effect that sounds like it's coming from within someone's head. And there's the nagging question of classified microwave work at Brooks Air Force Base that the Air Force stubbornly refuses to talk about. So it's kind of a hush-hush thing. Nobody really seems to know for sure that this weapon exists, but we do know that the technology to make it is there. If the government or the New World Order or whatever wanted to put a message into your head and make you think that your God was speaking to you, they could do it. Which, that alone is kind of terrifying. So, after they have this whole light show and people hearing the voices of God, all of these different deities merge together for the whole world to see into one God, which is the person who is the Antichrist. And it's essentially trying to create a form of Unitarianism. If you're familiar with that, if Jason and Brian were here, I could explain it to them. I'll explain it to you, listener. Unitarianism is the idea that all of the world's religions are all experiencing and worshiping the same God, but all doing so differently. So this would essentially enforce that, they've done these archaeological discoveries that, make everyone question everything, and then everyone's God appears to them, but then everyone's gods all merge into one. It's like this fake Messiah, this Antichrist, is saying, all of you have been worshiping me this entire time. I am the true God. And this would create a unified world religion. And apparently this would result in, it most likely would result in the dissolution of social and religious order. It says, the theory says it would set loose millions of programmed religious fanatics through demonic possession on a scale never witnessed before. And apparently the United Nations plans to use Beethoven's Ode to Joy as the anthem for the introduction of the New Age One World Order and One World Religion, which is actually interesting because I didn't know this until doing this research today, but apparently Europe has its own anthem. Like, all of Europe has an anthem, and it's called the Anthem of Europe, and it is a modified version of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And you think about New World Order and a one world government and globalism, the European Union is, probably the first thing that's going to jump on board. So, interesting. But apparently, no, I guess that's not real. There was another idea of doing the same thing, creating a fake second coming over Cuba to try to get Cubans to get rid of Castro, just like the idea in Iraq. So, yeah, step 2, they set all this up. They have the light show in the sky, everyone's gods merging into one, try to create one world religion. I gotta get a sip. Man, it's hard to do a beer podcast when it's just one person, because I can normally just drink my beer when other people are talking, but now I have to take breaks for you, and you can just listen to me sip. Anyway, step 3. Step 3 is telepathic electronic two-way communications. And I guess that's essentially an extension of Step 2, the second part of Step 2. So I don't really know why they merged those two together. But that's essentially the same thing, using more of these communications to make people think that their God is speaking to them. Basically sending messages into people's heads, telling them to, submit to the New World Order, fall in line, follow the religion, be compliant. And then the final step, Step 4. So Step 4 has 3 parts. Okay. So, essentially then, if Step 4 has 3 parts and the whole thing has 4 parts, so it's really a 6-part plan. So in Step 4, they make humanity think an alien invasion is about to occur at every major city, and make the Christians think that the rapture is about to happen. Then the third part of it is a mixture of electronic and supernatural forces, allowing the supernatural forces to travel through fiber optics, coax, power, and telephone lines to penetrate all electronic equipment and appliances that will by then all have a special microchip installed. Now, that apparently is... I never dug into the whole 5G thing and why there was a whole conspiracy theory around 5G, but once again, it all falls in with Project Bluebeam. The idea is that 5G is the technology that allows this to happen. How that works, I don't know. What they mean by supernatural forces, I don't know. It seems like what they're trying to say is that, demons and spirits are going to be traveling through the phone lines and through your router. But I think more realistically, it's that they're going to find a way to send these ultra-low frequency communications, into your head through devices in your own home, so that no matter where you are, they can put the voice of God in your head. So when everyone thinks that the aliens are going to invade or that the rapture is going to happen, chaos will break out and people will finally be willing, perhaps even desperate, to accept the New World Order. Basically convince everyone the apocalypse is coming and get them to fall in line, because the New World Order will protect them and it will keep them safe. I also heard another version of it, though, that they're going to say that the aliens are actually here to save us from the chaos, and that we need to go with the aliens or go with the rapture. But I think that was more along the lines of, that was for the believers. Those who have already fallen in line will not be told, they need to be saved from this New World Order. So basically, they would be rounded up, for a rapture or an alien invasion, or aliens were going to take them away. But really, they would just be taken to, extermination camps. So that would eliminate all the non-compliant people. And according to Sergei Monast, after all of this has happened, all people will be required to take an oath to Lucifer with a ritual initiation to enter the New World Order. Resistors will be categorized as follows. Christian children will be kept for human sacrifice or sexual slaves. Prisoners will be used in medical experiments and as living organ banks, which, some of this is already happening. I don't know if that's a conspiracy theory or not, but supposedly in China, they do use some of their prisoners as organ banks. I don't know if that's true, but I heard it from a nice Chinese woman when I was in Washington, D.C. once, and she was from Falun Gong or Falun Dafa, which is an organization that China does not like very much. Healthy workers will be in slave labor camps, and uncertain prisoners will be in the International Re-Education Center thence to repent on television and learn to glorify the New World Order, whatever that means. And then there will be an international execution center. And he said an as yet unknown 7th classification. So I don't know why I put it in there. But so the thing about the theory is a lot of people claim that it comes from a script written by Gene Roddenberry. And it was an unreleased script for a Star Trek movie. And in the unreleased script, basically before coming to a planet, they put holograms in the sky and like convince the people there that they're gods. And basically the whole thing that they do in Project Bluebeam is done in this script. But the similarities are not as close as they would like you to think. Also, it was an unreleased script, and the only thing people knew about it was a man named Joel Engel wrote a book about Gene Roddenberry and his unreleased Star Wars movie in 1994. So people say that, oh, well, Sergei Monast read that book and then immediately went out and started lecturing on this theory. But that just seems a little unlikely. What I think is more likely, and I don't want to say I believe it, but like this, because this theory has so much stuff in it that's really questionable, but there is a lot of stuff that actually is plausible. But it seems more like his theory just kind of falls in line with the Bible's telling of the end times. And, I don't know if that's what inspired him to write this, or if he just happened to find this and it just happens to go in line with that. So from the Bible perspective, we're gonna go to article I found earlier about basically the Bible's a summary of like the Bible's end times, a little bit of Revelation, some other books in here, and it starts with the idea of a one world government, one world currency, kind of New World Order kind of stuff. So the article says, the Bible does not use the phrase one world government or one world currency in referring to the end times. It does, however, provide ample evidence to enable us to draw the conclusion that both will exist under the rule of the Antichrist in the last days. In his apocalyptic vision in the book of Revelation, the Apostle John sees the beast, also called the Antichrist, rising out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This comes from Revelation 13:1, which is, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its heads. Combining this vision with Daniel's similar one, from Daniel 7:16 through 24, I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of things. These 4 great beasts are 4 kings who shall arise out of the earth, but the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. Then I desired to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. And about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. Anyway. So he pictures the final world government consisting of 10 entities represented by the 10 toes of the statue, whoever the 10 are and however they come to power. Oh, I didn't read all of those. Man, that was long. Oh, no, I skipped something. Okay, so from that verse I read, we can conclude that some sort of world system will be inaugurated by the beast, the most powerful horn, who will defeat the other 9 and will begin to wage war against Christians. The 10-nation confederacy is also seen in Daniel's image of the statue in Daniel 2, 41 and 42, which reads, "And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom, but some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with the soft clay, and as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle." Okay, so that's the whole 10 toes thing. So whoever the 10 are and however they come to power, Scripture is clear that the beast will either destroy them or reduce their power to nothing more than figureheads. In the end, they will do his bidding. I'm going to stop reading out the entire Bible verses because some of these are really long, so I'll just give them, and if you're interested, you can look them up. John goes on to describe the ruler of this vast empire as having power and great authority given to him by Satan himself, Revelation 13:2, being followed by and receiving worship from all of the world, 13:3-4, and having authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation, 13:7. From this description, it is logical to assume that this person is the leader of a one-world government, which is recognized as sovereign over all other governments. It's hard to imagine how such diverse systems of government as are in power today would willingly subjugate themselves to a single ruler, and there are many theories on the subject. A logical conclusion is that the disasters and plagues described in Revelation as the seal and trumpet judgments, chapters 6-11, will be so devastating and create such a monumental global crisis that people will embrace anything and anyone who promises to give them relief. Once entrenched in power, the beast, Antichrist, and the power behind him, Satan, will move to establish absolute control over all peoples of the earth to accomplish their true end, the worship of Satan, or the worship Satan has been seeking ever since being thrown out of heaven. One way they will accomplish this is by controlling all commerce, and this is where the idea of a one-world currency comes in. Revelation 13:16 and 17, verses 16 and 17, describes some sort of satanic mark which will be required in order to buy and sell, the mark of the beast. This means anyone who refuses the mark will be unable to buy food, clothing, or other necessities of life. No doubt the vast majority of people in the world will succumb to the mark simply to survive. Again, verse 16 makes it clear that this will be a universal system of control where everyone, rich and poor, great and small, will bear the mark on their hand or forehead. There is a great deal of speculation as to how exactly this mark will be affixed, but the technologies that are available right now could accomplish it very easily. Those who are left behind after the rapture of the church will be faced with an excruciating choice: accept the mark of the beast in order to survive, or face starvation and horrific persecution by the Antichrist and his followers. But those who come to Christ during this time, those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, Revelation 13:8, will choose to endure even to martyrdom. So that kind of lays out, a short summary of like the Bible's perspective of the end times, and also has very similar themes to Project Bluebeam. And it makes me wonder if most people, especially in America, they know the Christian religion, they know at least a little bit about the whole idea of the end times and the rapture and the Antichrist and all of that. So the idea that the government would use that to manipulate Christian people, we are a mostly Christian population, isn't really out of the realm of possibility. But what's interesting to me is them manipulating Christians in order to believe that there is, a second coming, and that there's, and setting up someone to be a ruler of the world, which would kind of play into the Christian's Antichrist. It kind of makes you wonder, is there manipulation, kind of falsifying these events, actually the way that it was intended to happen? You know what I mean? It's hard to kind of wrap my head around that, but basically what the Bible is describing is Project Bluebeam, is the government creating this huge deception, and it will actually trigger these events. And so through their whole manipulation, they would actually bring about the end times. It's kind of I don't really know what you call that, but it's interesting to me. And, thinking about, there was an idea, I can't remember what it was called, but it came sort of from the law of attraction, and also a couple of different ideas in quantum physics that basically our reality is determined by us, the conscious observers in the universe. And so if everyone believes something is true, then it does become reality. Kind of like what we talked about a while back, tulpas, the whole thought power that we have control over the universe. And if you take that idea and you apply it to the entire world, I believe at this point Christianity is still the largest religion in the world. I think Islam's a close second. But I don't know, they may have passed it up. I have no idea. But if that idea were true, that we create reality, well then, if most of the world is Christian, then that would make all of the Christian religion, the Christian God, all of that would be real because we believe it's real. So if I think about it this way, if this deception is good enough, it would accomplish the exact stated goal of Project Bluebeam, which is... Oh no, that was actually in the Bible. The Bible reading thing I was doing, where it was talking about how the Antichrist, with the power of Satan, the whole goal would be to turn everyone to Lucifer so he could get the worship that he wanted ever since being cast out of heaven. The idea would be that if you could convert the majority of the world to this one world religion where they believe that this other person is God, well then, if the idea that we create our own reality is true, the goal would be accomplished, and that new religion would be the reality. So this Antichrist, and backed by Satan, would become God, would outpower God. So I don't know, it's just kind of a cool thought. I mean, if you're not into the whole, if you're not into Christianity, Revelation, all that, then it's not even interesting to you. But to me, it was pretty cool. It's a good thing to talk about when Jason and Brian aren't here. Well, I mean, Brian would probably find it interesting. Jason's an atheist, so he'd probably be like, I can't get my Jason impression down. I think I've got Brian nailed, though. Brian. I don't know. Let me know. But, I think that's about it. I don't know. Looking into Project Bluebeam was a interesting experience, because it's hard to say, it's like, what came first, chicken or the egg? Was the whole thing inspired by the biblical take on the end times, or does his findings and his belief just happen to coincide with it? Is there actually, this stuff in the works? I read somewhere that since, I believe, 2008, there has been like a 25 to 30% increase in earthquake activity. We have all of this, there's talk in Project Bluebeam about, governments using social unrest and epidemics or pandemics in order to restructure society. And, we got all this great reset stuff going on now. Globalism's big. A lot of people really into socialism and communism. Could be that these are steps in the process, or it could be coincidence. But we also are having all of these UFO sightings recently, the government talking about UFOs, the Pentagon UFO report. They're in the news constantly now. It could be coincidence, or they could be getting ready to implement their plan. But, I think that's it for the actual subject of the episode. I'm going to sit back a little bit here, drink my beer, and the intro. The intro to this episode was different, if you didn't notice. It's one of 2 new intros that we have. We have a more serious intro that we will be showing next week, at the beginning of next week's episode, which I'll also be hosting, but not solo. That'll be nice. We have a guest coming down from Michigan. It's Victor. But yeah, the more serious one is good. So is the one in this episode, but I am conflicted as to, the intro at the beginning of this episode I put on here just kind of as a joke, but I also think it's really awesome, especially the little fart at the end of it. And, next week we'll use the serious one. The serious one is intended to be the future intro for all of our episodes, but I've got a few ideas. I'm thinking either when we actually have an episode that stays on topic and actually has interesting information in it, like this one, not to toot my own horn, but no Brian to distract me. And, maybe we use that more serious intro. And then just so you know what's coming ahead of time on episodes that are completely off topic and just a chaotic mess like last week, we could throw the goofy intro on there. Or we could just pick one or the other, let us know which one you like better, and that's the one we'll use. So, anyway, Brian, since you've been so cooperative today, will you say the line?
Have fun, everybody.